Today we have the honor of speaking with Miss Brooke Baldwin, a phenomenal broadcast journalist and a Westminster alum. She is well known for her work anchoring CNN Newsroom with Brooke Baldwin, her CNN Commission series American Woman, and authoring her book, Huddle, How Women Unlock Their Collective Power.
We're huddling right here, just so you know.
She's an incredible leader in the Atlanta and national community, and she has a lot of wisdom to share with us today. So welcome.
So fun to be here. So good to be home.
Great. So we'll just jump in with, so what first drew you to broadcast journalism and how did you begin your career?
What first drew me? You know, I've been telling the story recently. I remember growing up in Atlanta and going to Braves games down when it was Fulton County Stadium downtown, and we would bring binoculars, my family and I. And yes, we were watching the players, but also I remember being keenly aware of Ted Turner, who founded CNN in downtown Atlanta in 1980. And so we would sort of like look and spy and try to find Ted and his wife at the time, Jane Fonda. And so I became aware of the presence of CNN in my hometown of Atlanta. And then I think growing up, I became aware of, you know, Katie Couric on the Today Show and Jane Pauley and Barbara Walters, who recently passed, who I got to meet, and Oprah. And so I was aware of broadcast journalism. I wasn't necessarily growing up saying, I want to be on TV, but I was interested in telling stories. Mm-hmm. And that's how the seeds were sort of planted.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and looking forward to when you worked at CNN, you were in the field working with real people. How did you balance those authentic human emotions and then also being professional and bringing the story to people watching?
You know what? I think at the end of the day, you learn to just show up fully as yourself. And maybe that sounds really simple, but I try not to overthink it. In the beginning, when you're brand new in a job, certainly for me, in the beginning at CNN, I was completely nervous. I mean, at any given time, you sit in that seat, that anchor seat, and essentially it's like somebody's handing me the baton, and I'm running this relay, and it's my 2 hours now. And so any story could break anywhere around the world, and it's on me to be calm, be accurate, and relay that information to the viewer. And in the beginning, I was totally nervous. And I was saying earlier in Keith Evans' Jan Term class, you know, I still get nervous. And getting nervous to me means I care. And through, you know, Kate, through working, just doing story after story after story, you get that practice. You get those reps under your belt so you're ready for the next time. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to flub. It's the beauty of live TV is you only get to do it once and you move on. You move on from it. It's also like life is about the recovery. So if you screw up, own it, move on. And that's how you learn. That's how I learned.
Yeah, absolutely. And focusing on those stories that you covered, you worked with natural disasters, school shootings, politics, and everything in between. To you, what moments really stick out from your career?
Gosh, I did cover, you know, I happened to be in the seat for far too many mass shootings and school shootings. And so that is something I really got to know the community of survivors. And one of the most poignant difficult moments I was so honored moments in my career was gathering about 40 gun violence survivors in a room in the museum in Washington, D.C., and it had never been done before. It was after, I think the most recent shooting at that time was the WDBJ shooting of a young TV reporter and her photographer in Roanoke, Virginia, and it just hit so close to home for me because I started in Charlottesville, Virginia. I know what it's like to be out on a morning story, and just to have some crazy person come up and take anyone's life is reprehensible. And so I wanted to do something about it and really give voice to these people. And so I had everyone show up with their loved one who had been killed. And it didn't have to be mass violence or mass shooting. It could be suicide. It could be a variety of things. Lucy McBath showed up. She's now a congresswoman here in Georgia. She lost her son Jordan because he was playing his music too loud at a gas station, and somebody just up and shot him. So it was the Charleston AME church shooting had happened also. It's just all these people to sit in a room like that and to listen to them was not a dry eye, but something that I am just incredibly proud of, and I'm still in touch with so many of these people to this day.
Yeah. That is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And on the topic of stories, for those who are unfamiliar, I would love to hear more about your series, American Woman, and also your book and kind of what your mission was behind that.
Yes. In 2016, a guy by the name of Donald Trump was running for president, all right? And so we were all covering him pretty intensely, and I say we, cable networks, TV news networks in general. You know, who was this person who was really well known in New York, and you know, hosted The Apprentice and suddenly wants to become the president of the United States. He got a lot of airtime. We can discuss whether that was a good thing in another interview. Needless to say, for his inauguration in 2017, I was chosen among everyone at CNN to be the embed in the motorcade, which meant I was hanging out on the back of a flatbed truck after the inauguration with some of the White House press pool watching the newly inaugurated president and the First Lady coming down Constitution and going to the White House for the very first time. And I had kind of an out-of-body experience. I mean, I won't repeat what was said on that bus with Billy Bush many years ago, but that was very recent, you know? And so as a woman covering this person, I couldn't help but wonder, as I'm watching him wave to the crowds, what it would be like covering this administration for the next 4 years. Cut to the very next day, sort of emotional journalistic whiplash, I found myself in the middle of 500,000 women covering the Women's March on Washington, where, you know, trade out the camo and the red hats for pink hats, and men and women and children and grandparents all coming together using their voices sort of against everything we'd seen parading through Washington the day before. And I had two ahas covering that. Number one was I'd never been around so many women like that in my life, using their voices in that way. And I had noticed covering the campaign the previous year that I'd never seen so many women left, right, and center showing up in that way in my entire career. And so that was, you know, my intuition, my spidey sense said, Brooke, follow your nose. Like, something special is happening with women in this country. You need to see what's happening and why. And so thus that started the beginning, the seeds of American Woman. And my other aha was, I took my reporter hat off and I looked at all these women showing up together, you know, like sharing tanks of gas and waiting in the really long porta potty lines, or, you know, jumping on planes together to come be there to hear their voices heard. And I thought, would I have had a huddle? Would I have had a group of women who would have done that with me? And I didn't, because I had amazing singular girlfriends all across the country, but because I was so career driven and had lived in all these small markets and I didn't have a collective of women, and I wanted to do something about it. And so that also was the beginning of sort of how Huddle was born. So first came American Woman, 2 series where I interviewed everyone from Betty White to Issa Rae to Ava DuVernay to Ashley Graham, and then eventually wrote a book about the collective power of women.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's amazing. I'm curious, you touched on this with the election of President Trump and just politics. I think America has seen a big divide in the past couple of years.
Yeah.
And what role do you think journalism plays in maybe lessening that divide?
Honestly, I think we have helped exacerbate it. I think that through the Trump years, I got into journalism to tell the truth, to call out the BS, to listen to people, to give voice to the voiceless. I think a lot of people, when Trump was elected, a lot of folks, and I say my own colleagues on rival networks, you know, really started, and I did some of it too, because that's what was wanted, right? Was to really take a stand and have an opinion. And I think it got too far. And what happened was the viewer then would tune in to MSNBC because they would want to see Rachel Maddow rant on everything that was happening, or they'd want to see Don Lemon, you know, rant on Trump, or they'd want to tune in and see, you know, Sean Hannity rant about the liberals. And I think that how we covered news fundamentally changed, and I'm not saying it necessarily went in the right way. I think some of my colleagues are extraordinary at calling out the truth in an administration where it needed to be called out on a daily basis, right? But I think there's a line, and I think to some degree, you know, TV news has worsened this crevasse now where we are between left and right, and I'm very curious about if we will ever, how will we come back together if we're all in our silos and Fox News people only watch Fox News and CNN people only watch CNN, and you only follow those people on social media, how will we ever listen or come together? That I don't have the answer to yet, but I'm very interested in it.
That is very, very impactful and very wise. As a slight pivot, I wanted to hear about who your role model is.
My role model? In TV?
Just in your life or in TV.
Role model. I mean, we're all forever living in the age of Oprah. I mean, how can I not I think Oprah is extraordinary. I think Oprah is someone who leads with integrity, who is her full self. I talk a lot,
Yes.
You asked me earlier about how do you show up. Showing up is my full self. And when I was younger, I felt the need to dress a certain way or sound a certain way to emulate some other TV anchor. And I think the more and more I did television, the more and more I realized, Brooke, just be you. And someone like Oprah, to me, fully embodies that. And just her wisdom, her take no, you know what, and her friendship with Gayle King. I mean, that OG Huddle, I so admire them. And I met Oprah, and I was about to fangirl her, and she turned to me and recognized me and fangirled me. What? And I'll never forget, she goes, Brooke Baldwin, you're just so sensible, you're so good, you're so sensible. And I was like, stop, life, I'm done, thank you for everything, I'm good, you can take me now, But it was such an incredible moment in my life, but also, life and career and just authentically affirming how I show up to do my job. Love you, Oprah.
I really like what you said about kind of finding yourself and learning how to be yourself. And recently, you've decided to leave CNN after an incredibly successful career.
Yeah.
So what do you see yourself doing now?
Yep, left my dream job because I think I need to dream a new dream. I think that I'm so grateful for the privileged perch I had for so many years and the relationship I had to the viewers. But I think what I want to do now is swim more in the deeper end of storytelling, meaning, not just be on air and go from guest to guest to guest, 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. I would love to just really chew on stories and have more time with people and dig a little deeper and maybe embed or investigate or be with the people and not be all shiny in a TV news studio. And just see where that takes me. I'm interested in unscripted TV and just finding new ways to tell stories or interact with people and be of service and inspire and maybe even piss people off, but get to the truth of whatever we're talking about.
Absolutely.
I love that. So talking about, service and courage and finding yourself, the way you look up to Oprah is likely how lots of students at Westminster look up to you. So as a Westminster alum, what is some advice you would give to Westminster students who are currently, pursuing their own interests and are soon going to be leaders in their own fields?
I would say a couple of things. I would say just stay curious. Don't think you know everything just because you went to Westminster and we're all super smart. Stay curious, stay open-minded, ask lots of questions. Be kind. And I was saying in Keith's Jan term class, one of the best pieces of advice, it's super simple, but just learn how to really listen. I think we're all so tethered to our phones and to our devices and to social media and to email and to whatever it is that's distracting us from just being present and having a conversation and looking you in the eye and listening and letting there be silence and being comfortable in that, so that you give me your truth where you are. I'm thinking of a TV interview. Those are the magical moments. And whether you're getting into television or you want to go be a investment banker, it's self-belief and learning how to listen, I think, are a dying art form of things we need to stay in touch with.
I'm really curious, where do you see journalism going in, say, 10 years, and what role do you think you'll have in that?
I am super curious, too. I think that cable news isn't what it was when I was aspiring to be a CNN anchor. I mean, it's full of incredibly talented people who I so admire, my former colleagues, but I think that things do seem to be moving towards social media. I'm fascinated and could start a whole conversation with you guys about how younger people are getting their news, and you guys aren't tuning into CNN and Fox. You're hopping on TikTok and learning about, you know, things from influencers to people who provide the news, and I'm fascinated about that. And like media literacy, how do you know what somebody is saying in TikTok is accurate? How are you cross-referencing? I'm could do a whole TV series just about that. I think it's going more that way of social media and of streaming platforms, and I have no idea what is going to happen to traditional news. I think, yeah, I don't have an answer for you, is my answer. But I am very curious to see.
Yeah, I know we can't wait to see too. We can't wait to see what you do. And just once again, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Go Wildcats!
Go Wildcats.
Thank you.